Trespasser is Dragon Age Inquisition's latest and final piece of DLC. It sees the Inquisition traveling to Orlais 2 years after the fall of Corypheus to attend the Exalted Council, a political gathering organized to determine whether or not the Inquisition should be disbanded.
Our goal was to keep more Ferelden citizens from dying, not to seize power.
Your help was appreciated 2 years ago, Inquisitor. Now order has been restored, yet you remain.
Story is the main focus in this expansion, and it tells an intriguing, if not somewhat perplexing tale. The Exalted Council is interrupted by invading bands of Qunari radicals, and it's up to the Inquisitor and friends to find out how and why, and put a stop to it.
We need to find out what's going on.
Things get crazy pretty quickly as we discover Illuvians, magical mirrors that act as portals hidden around the Orlesian Palace. Venturing through the mirrors yields more mystery as the Inquisition meets the spirits of age-old elves, investigates an assassination plot, explores the deep roads, again, and battles hordes of new dangerous foes before uncovering the true identity of an old ally. The story holds up for the most part as long as you pay close attention to the beats of the main game. There are no side quests that present any extraneous plot aside from finding books scattered about the world, and it does a good job of keeping the story streamlined and easy to follow. Very few new characters are introduced, keeping the focus on those we're already invested in, and it all accumulates in a final confrontation that anyone who's seen the trailers will no doubt be anticipating. Though the tale Trespasser weaves is relatively concise, I found it difficult to really understand everyone's motives. I understood that the Inquisition had to stop the trespassing Qunari so that the Exalted Council could continue in peace, but I wasn't entirely clear on the Qunari's motives for organizing an assassination plot. Yes, they needed to kill some political figures for one reason or another, but the fact that I can't seem to remember why says something about the way that plot point was delivered.
It's not too late to put our weapons down and talk.
There's a ton of exposition about elven gods, most of which the players must read, which slows down the action and potentially alienates the player if they aren't a scholar of Dragon Age lore. This is one aspect of the Dragon Age games that many devoted fans enjoy, so it isn't a bad thing, but the way the game purveys the information isn't well executed, and frankly, I wasn't bothered to care much about it, which made the conversation with Soulless at the end all the more confusing.
I suspect you have questions.
The Soulless Confrontation was definitely a selling point for this DLC, as he's been MIA since the end of the main campaign. And although it's not wholly unsatisfying, I found myself scratching my head much more often than nodding it.
A good question, but not one I will answer.
I won't say too much to avoid spoilers, but there's a lot of elven lore lecturing that feels more like an info dump than a conversation. It isn't devoid of interesting revelations though, and anyone with an understanding of the game's story will find some answers here, but more so if you've been studying your lore books. When it comes to gameplay, Trespasser has its highs and lows. It's quite slow to start, especially coming out of the previous battle-centric Descent DLC. This can be a positive or negative change depending on how you like to play. I found it somewhat refreshing to be able to walk among the ostentatious gardens and pools the Orlesian Palace had to offer, and the idle chat with party members was entertaining. Players can also straighten paintings on walls and hunt down dog treats for slight bumps to attribute points.
You found a dog?
When things finally start moving, players can start entering Illuvians and bring with them whatever party members they have available. Who you can take with you is completely dependent on your actions during the main game storyline. I jumped into Trespasser without having completed much of the post-game side quests, and found myself unable to use a few party members. It was never well explained to me why certain characters were unavailable, and I found it disheartening that I couldn't utilize my full party. The level design in Trespasser lacks overall complexity, as the majority of areas are quite literally just straight lines across bridges or through linear areas. There are moments that break the monotony, such as the library or the deep roads, but it still feels like most of the levels are just wandering from Illuvian to Illuvian in a painfully linear fashion. And yes, you heard me right, the deep roads are back. I found it strange that BioWare decided to take us back underground after we had spent an entire DLC there less than a month ago. It made relative sense as far as the story went, but it was a bit of a downer to be thrown back into a place I've already thoroughly explored when playing something that's supposed to be new.
We can't change what happened. Only how we react to it now.
Trespasser tries to throw in puzzles every now and then to spice things up. Perhaps I missed a few, but those that I encountered ranged from incredibly simple to really not that hard.
Wow.
The highlights of Trespasser's gameplay are undoubtedly in the boss fights. Whether you're taking on the terrifying Qunari Cerebas or even a massive poison-breathing dragon, these encounters are intense, challenging, and fun. I'd say that this DLC's bosses are by far my favorite fights in all of Dragon Age Inquisition, and they are enhanced by the new anchor mechanic. This new ability for your Inquisitor allows him or her to discharge a powerful blast of energy from their marked hand. There are different upgrade tiers to this ability, unlocked through standard progression, and with each new feature comes greater devastation. At first, this ability allows for temporary invincibility and a light source, before upgrading to include a damaging blast of energy, and then finally, a massive blast that could potentially injure allies if used improperly. This adds a whole new tactic to battles, and even opens up further exploration possibilities. Perhaps my biggest problem with Trespasser is the fact that after beginning the DLC, there's no turning back.
Oh, shit! Damn it!
If you're like me and wanted to experience the DLC the day it came out, but you still hadn't finished up all the main game side quests, you're forced to make a separate save if you want to go back to the main game. Once you attend the Exalted Council, time is fast-forwarded 2 years, and the game analyzes everything that you did or didn't do thus far to create your world state for Trespasser. This opens up a lot of opportunities for unique experiences, but it also puts tremendous limits on the game. Dragon Age is a huge open-world experience with a million things to do, but if you play Trespasser, it becomes an entirely linear experience with only one objective. This is clearly what it's supposed to be, as it makes sense in terms of the story, and as linear experiences go, it isn't a bad one. I just wish I didn't have to go back to a different save file in order to enjoy the meat of the game.
Could one thing in this fucking world just stay fixed?
As is the case in the rest of the game, Trespasser's visuals are outstanding. From the magnificent decorum of the Orlesian Palace to the breathtaking vistas of the lands beyond the Alluvians, the new areas are beautiful and true works of art. This is of course discounting the return trip to the Deep Roads, which while impressive doesn't even really look as great as it did in Descent, and isn't something we haven't already seen.
I don't think you understand how this works.
As far as DLC goes, Trespasser holds its own and separates itself from Inquisition's previous expansions. The ways it does so may not always be great, but as a whole, its high points shine through the lows. It delivers some much-needed closure for the game's story, and I can't say I walked away dissatisfied. For more gaming news and reviews, head over to AccessPointGaming.com. I'm Dom Hassett or Dark Mask. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your journey through Trespasser.